Hello, Tekla fanatics. You are listening or watching Tekla Podcast, where we are all about practical knowledge about how you can raise your Tekla efficiency and minimize project mistakes. You can listen or watch this podcast or videos, but today we are planning to show some small demonstration also. So if you can, then I recommend to watch this episode in YouTube. But there are plenty of, or most of this interview will be about the questions and answers. So if you are just listening, then I think you will get everything just fine. Today we have in our two guests from Alto 4.0, and this company is digital solution company or software development office, and it's part of UPB. That was last episode was our guest, and so they are one part of this company, or yes, one part. And UPB and this Alto 4.0, as you remember, they are both from Latvia. And UPB was doing complex constructions of concrete, steel, and aluminium facades. And they are doing more than 60% or more or less 60% were for export. So it's especially complicated. They started from like design, and they are doing all the way until to the installation. And this is why we invited today, especially this episode is Alto 4.0, because they are doing different developments for UPB and for other selling also these developments. Looks like they're doing Tekla plugins, but what we are concentrated today is about Alto ERP system. That is, I have seen one time this demo long time ago, and it was really impressive. I got so many ideas how I can take this kind of information, this kind of like tricks, tips, tools in everyday life. So it don't matter if you would like to buy something from some of the products, but I'm 100%, let's say 100 is nothing. Never 90% sure that you find or get some takeaways, ideas, how you or what you can do in your company also using Tekla structures. We have two guests today here. The first one is Karel Sarins. He's head of sales and business development, and with him there is Robert Stobelis, who is also from the same company and the same segment, let's say so. So welcome, guys, and how was the introduction? Do you agree, or would you have something to add?
I think you didn't lie, so it's good. Fairly accurate, I would say.
Yeah, the 90% worked well. 100 was a bit too much.
Yes, nothing is in life 100%, and that's what we're all about. Let's try to be accurate. So if nothing is 100%, then 90% can be. Okay, guys, can you tell me first of all, what is this Alto ERP system?
So long story short, it's an enterprise resource planning software, and it's designed specifically for the precast concrete industry. We have two more versions of it, also suitable to some extent to steel and unitized aluminum facade producers. But in an essence, it's a complete solution for managing the entire project life cycle with confidence, accuracy, and efficiency. So it kind of covers the life cycle. When I mention life cycle, the life cycle is from when you design something, but that part is left to Tekla. So we use Tekla and we integrate with Tekla. But once the design is ready in Tekla and you have something that can be produced and has some drawings behind it, then it starts the life cycle in our system. And the life cycle ends with the assembly or installation. So basically when it's put in its right place in a building, and we cover everything in between and try to limit the number of phone calls, emails, and chaos that could originate if you would be doing this manually. That's the essence of the software.
Good. I have had one startup startup company also, and I know that in many cases there is cheaper to just buy some solution or something that someone has done from long hours already, have put the effort, and then the buying investment is much cheaper than starting to develop it by yourself, because you most probably invest much more there. So what was the reason? Why didn't you take some other ERP system into use and develop your own one?
So it was about 7 or 8 years ago, our mother company, UPB. They were in the market of finding a solution to manage the construction process more efficiently. They didn't find anything that suited them. There are plenty of those large ERP systems that suit all the FMCG, manufacturing, all those kind of typical sales industries, but they miss the component of construction in them. So they're not tailored to managing the tasks and specifics we want to do. So instead of just going for a system that's great for finance, for accounting, for the sales, they decided to go for a system that actually helps the process along the way in terms of construction. And by that time, they didn't find anything that suited them well. So, and they still have a very digitally aware and innovative management, and they decided to develop it themselves. The cost probably is more than we would have bought something, but there was nothing on the market that satisfied them at the moment. There are some other softwares on the market now, but still the choice for the precasters is very limited. So so in essence, you're right. It's better to come and buy, and actually that's why one of the reasons we are now commercially available, because we invested so much work in it. Then it's just worthless to keep it just to ourselves. It's great to share it with others, and others make the solution better because they give feedback to us.
Yes. As I can see, you have risen the bar high, and it was difficult for others to jump over.
It is true. I mean, it's when you look at a very high level, everything fits. Either it's in your personal life, it's a car, or is it a flat, or is it a meal? But when you have very specific needs, and when you look that you really want to address some challenges, for example, planning the production of your precast facility, making sure you have the latest drawings available, being able to get this information straight out of Tekla, then the choice gets really limited or close to none. And that's the point where we come in. And then we're basically trying to address these specific challenges. And this software will not be suitable for maybe for general contractors, or for heat, ventilation, and air conditioning. So it's very narrow field, but it fits it very well.
So who are the best, or for whom it's the best? I assume that the precast concrete fabricators, or
It is precast concrete fabricators with a small tweak. Probably the best fit is for those who are doing sort of project specific items, which means, for example, sandwich walls, precast panels, stairs, and so on and so forth. For the guys producing repetitive elements, which are kind of off-the-shelf products produced in terms of just having the appropriate quantity in stock, it's less suitable because you lose a lot of functionality. For example, the specific manufacturing planning and other tools. You operate in a different fashion, and because UPB is operating in this fashion of having this full spectrum of having designers in house, getting this design in Tekla, which is great for precast, then pulling this information automatically towards our system, working it with having our own production facility, and then having our own installation team, which kind of finalizes the process in the system. That's the best fit. So it's architectural precast, some call it, those kind of type of manufacturers. and any company like UPB, which also operates in design capacity and installation capacity.
Okay, I know that the Alto ERP is really let's say that powerful tool, but what would you say for these companies who are not using any ERP or the really simple Excel sheet ERP, or let's go like this? So what are the biggest dangerous places or costly places where they potentially can lose what they should be careful of, where they can lose a lot of money and time?
So this question kind of segues very well from the previous point of Carlos when he said the things that we do have, which is basically what these other systems or the people not using any system don't have. It's this having these always the most current drawings on the system and always being accessible. It is this optimized product scheduling and the manufacturing scheduling, which in these general systems you can't really do as efficiently. And it's all these little features, or well, they're not as little if you compare to how, like, what kind of cost you can associate with them. But the biggest one that we've done quite a lot of demos and talked with quite a lot of companies, and I don't think any company has not said this point. It's that what is their main problem is not having everything in the same place, and it's either you're using one of these generic ERP systems, which are just for kind of any company, which do the basic things, or you're just using Excels. The main problem for everyone is not having everything in the same place. And while it may not seem as such severe of a problem, it means that you have to trade a lot more emails to communicate any changes or whatever is happening in the project. And it means basically that whatever you want to find out or something, you have to go through these different files or communicate with different people, and it really slows down the time and wastes basically money.
Let's jump in now to a little bit more into Alto ERP, and can you tell how do you coordinate in this software or this ERP system design, production, logistics, and installation? As I mentioned, that UPB is doing this entire workflow, and they are controlling everything and how it goes and they are using, I think, also Alto ERP.
Yeah, so it might look complicated when you look at the software and all the know-how that's behind it, but the general principles are the same sound principles you would use in getting any job done. And I would characterize them in almost 2 or 3 simple steps. Is knowing what you need to do, knowing the person who needs to do it, and knowing by when you need to do it. And once you have all this information available, then comes in the factor of having a computerized system, or a system that's actually, our system is in the cloud. So once you put that information in a cloud and it's available to everyone, and any changes are always recorded, that's where the coordination takes place. Because if you operate in those silos, the production, design, the logistics, installation, in construction, there's like always some sort of delays or changes. And then your ideal plan, which you made when you kind of sold the building or you were contracted to do the job, it usually fades away. It doesn't fade away massively, but at least you get a week there, maybe a few days, a truck is delayed or something. A design is late for a particular tough part. So the coordination in essence then is, we have the information about the element that needs to be produced. And when we use term in this podcast element, it's an item or a product, a concrete element, a wall, a sandwich wall, or a panel, or a column, a particular one, which has its place and location in a project and it's unique. We always associate a date to it. And there are several dates: the dates of assembly or installation, when it needs to be shipped, when it needs to be done in manufacturing, and by when the design needs to be complete, because those are sequential steps. Once you have these things sorted, and then once something changes along the way, for example, design is late, everybody else gets notified and can have their own notifications set up. And once everybody is notified, there is no surprises, and that's basically how we get organized. It's by implementing sound principles And probably the biggest benefit of the system is that you can control enormous projects and all projects together by just having the power of computer of juggling too many balls, while having, for example, 7 Excel spreadsheets each in a different department would probably take a lot of people just to get organized. So you can just leave it to the computer.
Okay, very good. You mentioned about planning and what you need to do, who needs to do, and when needs to do. How goes this planning in your case? So in Alto ERP, are you doing inside, or how goes the planning?
So you have sold a building, or you're engaged in a project, you know when you need to get it done. That's a very high level company stuff. But when you go into the nitty-gritty details, we usually say it's the other way around, like with project or any kind of planning you would do in your life. You start with end in mind. So for example, the column on the second floor needs to be done by mid-July. So what does it actually mean? We start to calculate backwards. So the assembly manager, installation manager, who is responsible for the overall program and delivery of the project, he selects this particular element and gives a deadline. So when he needs this item on site and installed, then automatically everyone else gets a buffer zone or a notification. So, okay, you need this item mid-July. This item is in a site north of Sweden, away from a port, away from a logistics center. We need 2 weeks to ship it. Okay, by 1st of July, it should leave our warehouse. And then it goes backwards. So maybe 1 week for production, 1 week to source the specific concrete or the components. And then actually maybe a few weeks more before that, the final design should be approved internally. So having then in mind, starting with assembly and then just calculating backwards, that's how we do the planning in the system.
I'm sure that we will see something about this planning part also in this demonstration, but can you say with a couple of words how it goes, like all this information we have to type in and calculate, or how this like planning goes from backward to forward for each element, and then in the middle way, if we have some kind of like surprises, like I think every project there will be some surprises. Something gets broken, is not arriving, all the things are moving, some subcontractors have has COVID or whatever. So what will happen, how you do at the beginning, and how will be these surprises like taken care of, taken into account in this ERP system, or should be?
Okay, so I would almost come back to my own definition of a surprise. So surprise is almost the opposite of what I have said before. So you had a plan, you had a date, you know what you had to do and who had to do it. But then if you take any of those elements out or you change them randomly and then somebody else is not aware of that, then it becomes a surprise. So how to avoid surprises is probably there's no way to affect the larger life or COVID or external factors. So how we do it, whenever something changes in the system, some delay or something, the person in charge changes the deadline of assembly or design, and that everybody else along the lifeline gets a notification that something has changed and there is no more 5 Excels that need to be synchronized. It almost synchronizes immediately. So you basically avoid the surprise because you immediately get the feedback either from the factory or from the design department or from the site about changes that need to be implemented. They might not be, surprises are never nice, but at least you know them immediately and you will work on addressing them. The worst that can happen is that, oh, I called you yesterday, you didn't pick up. I forgot to say you that actually we don't need those slabs anymore. They're delayed for 1 week, but then, oh God damn it, the truck is on its way now. So to avoid that, that's where the power of the system comes in. We synchronize the data and it runs smoothly and everybody is aware of the latest status, as like with the drawings. You always get the latest information and you always disregard everything that was before.
In addition to that, also we have a specific feature in our system in which we can, like the users of the system can make claims And these can basically be any kind of problems that are happening anywhere along the process. So it could be just some safety issues in the factory, or it could be as severe as a defective element arrived on site or something, which would mean that the project has to kind of go way back. But anyways, the person who spots these problems, they can just make a claim in our system and basically say that here is the other responsible department, and we should fix this problem. And then inside our system, you don't need to trade some emails, but inside the system you can resolve this issue, split the blame, and also include pictures, and so everything is digitized that it has been solved and it's okay.
Yeah, I think it's very good to have this also in documented way. So in the future, if something goes to argumenting, then it's good to look back and it's registered in the system. So here comes my another question is how have you solved this problem that, okay, on one side we have this really smart and technical savvies who are sitting in office doing this really cool plan, but then the other side is what is the reality, what's going on in the transportation, on the construction side. There are these let's say many times more simpler guys. So how you have tackled this, that all this you can compare this information. For one side is the plant situation that is ideal, that we are thinking that it should go or we want to go, and the other side is reality, and then we want to compare these two. So how you get this information from real life to the computer database system and compare and be notify everybody if there are any changes?
So I guess we're kind of lucky because even our simpler guys, they can basically do everything they need in the system. However, as you could imagine, it can be quite cumbersome to, if you're in a factory doing manufacturing, to suddenly pull out a computer and start doing something on there and checking in the system that this element is manufactured. Or you're loading large elements onto a truck and then suddenly you again need to pull out a computer. That's why in our factories, we use specific scanners a lot, which basically allow us to scan the QR codes of elements, which our system generates. So as soon as you add an element into our system, it generates a specific QR code, which then the system can immediately locate this element by this QR code. And inside the factory, basically all the things that have to deal with updating some information. So of course, you're not going to upload new elements with the scanner, but as far as if you have to change the status of an element or check that it has been done or the quality control has been done, all you need to do is go up to the element which has the sticker of the QR code. You scan the QR code, you put in the info that you need, either it's quality control check done, or it has been loaded onto a truck, or it has arrived on site actually. But you just click on the necessary action that you want to check that it has been done. And additionally, as you said, that it's good to document these things if some misunderstandings arise, then you also add pictures basically with every step that you take. So if you're doing quality control when the element is manufactured or when it arrives on site, you always do pictures with the same scanner because it's an industrial scanner, which has also a camera. So you take picture of the element and it gets saved as well with the status update of the element. And that's how we kind of also do the quality control.
Okay, this is inside the factory, but do you have any solutions also what happens outside of the factory when it's going to the logistics on the transportation or construction site, or even if there are some subcontractors? So is there any solutions for this also?
Okay, so I just wanted to say that this we also can do with scanners, basically the updating part. So as I mentioned before, if you load an element onto the truck, then you can scan, for example. So at first, when you're loading elements onto a truck, you first scan kind of the actual delivery QR code, and then you see all the elements that need to be loaded onto the truck. And in addition, you see where they are located. So you don't have to run around your warehouse, which might have a lot of elements. You see the specific location where it is located, and you can load these elements onto the truck and you scan these QR codes. In addition, it actually does, again, a kind of quality control the system itself. So if you're trying to add an element that is not supposed to be on this truck, it will again give you a notification and say that, hey, there might be something wrong here because this element was not supposed to be on this truck. Similarly, so then when you load them, you can accept that the delivery is kind of started going to the site. And then the next step is basically arriving on site, because after you've checked that the truck has started going away from the factory, you know that it's traveling somewhere. And then when it arrives on site, again, there is another person with a scanner who can again scan the delivery number and just check that the elements have arrived and it's fine. And when they are assembled, again, you can do this with these scanners, basically doing all the updates necessary.
I have been in one hackathon in Tallinn where UPB was there also, and there I saw the demo. And what I went to do was one weekend, and our product that we started from zero and ended at least with MVP was actually a mobile app that was scanning the QR codes also. So it's even I think maybe the development of this kind of like scanner, mobile scanner is not too complicated and possible. So it could be done with any mobile phone. The question that I had from the judges there was that isn't there any problems with this kind of like QR code stickers that maybe they with the wind or with rain it gets off or just stays under the concrete or something? So have you had problems with these like not visible QR codes, or something happens with them that they're not readable anymore?
Always something happens. It's just inevitable. You transport items for 500 kilometers on an open truck. The wind, the rain, everything is affecting it. So I would even paraphrase the question to, how would you do it if you didn't have the QR code? How would you even know what's on the truck? I mean, what's the alternative? Alternative is that in our case, we sometimes might lose a sticker because of whatever reasons, and we have to kind of then look at the delivery plan and see, okay, this is the element that's supposed to come here, and we just click the same button on the computer. But the previous way would be, for example, we have a paper list, and the paper list gets lost in a gas station when the driver is having a coffee, and there is no sticker at all or no identification at all. So there's always pros and cons, but I would say probably the benefits outweigh those rare cases when something goes wrong.
Very, very good answer. Always can something happen. My next question is, in your case, as you mentioned, there is fabrication, there is the warehouse, then there is the logistics, where in UPB case, they are taking really far distances with different transportation methods. I know there are ships, I think, also included besides of trucks, and then the installation part. So what is the thing, how you ensure the good quality or that everything goes well? What's the main thing in all stages? They're complex and difficult, really complex workflow. And there are a lot of different elements that are going daily everywhere. So what is the most best thing to ensure the good quality of and the project goes well?
I think when we look at from a customer perspective, the one kind of buying the house or willing the house to be built. So the main, or from an investor's perspective, it's just get the job done, good quality, and get the job done on time. Usually, all the things you mentioned, the logistics, the factory, and design, they have their own internal quality controls, and it's great. It's just probably the problem with the large construction problems is that just getting all those independent people working together and being synchronized to deliver on time, and once again knowing who does what by when, and so on and so forth. So I think the benefit of the system is just you're trying to juggle very many balls in very many departments, or many balls are in the air. if I use that expression, and then the system just kind of does it for you, and it just keeps everybody synchronized like an orchestra. If the orchestra in an opera would be playing somewhat differently, the violin and the drums or something, it would just not sound like that. So the biggest challenge is not probably the performance of the individual items, but actually putting all of them in a sequence. So for example, I give you a brick and then you're ready to pick it up and put it in a place. If I give it too fast, you're not finished with the previous one, or I'm late, you're hauled up, and then the next person after you is hauled up. So I say, probably the system is best suited for the companies that start to feel the complexity. For example, you can be disorganized and still get the job done, but please, then you need more people to keep it under control. But once you start to feel the pressure that, okay, we're growing bigger, there's a lot of coordination happening now, we have several ongoing projects, how do we know what to manufacture? It might be the time to reach out and discuss about the solution.
Yeah. In these cases, the things go more complex and the stakes are getting higher and the mistakes are getting more costly. I know that in, I think, the ships or the ferry ships factories, it's a little bit similar to the construction, but the stakes are really much higher. And in these cases, they are really planning every step like much more through, and everything works in like clockwork, like they say. So the planning is definitely one key of success. And if everybody are knowing what they are doing and when they should do, as you mentioned, who does what, when does, and the third one was who, when, and what needs to be done. Yes, was the three things to plan carefully, and everybody should know and when and be like updated. So without further ado, I think maybe we can do this demo to show a little bit what is how this system works, and then we can come back with the questions. So guys, the stage is yours.
As probably you have understood from our comments, the system is quite sophisticated with quite a lot of features to show. And showing all of them is, I guess, not really realistic in a very short period. So what I would like to do is just explain some of the more high-level things and to show kind of what is the element life cycle that it goes through, or rather the project life cycle, and how everything moves along in our system, which might not have been fully clear from what we told. So this is the main dashboard that you can see right now on the screen. And the main thing you can see here are these notifications that we told you about, which are basically all the things that you in your profession might need to know. And another thing I have to mention, that I will show you all these features that different people do. So we will kind of take the professions of different people, like the manufacturing managers, the planners, and the project managers, and whoever not. So just to show you kind of all the functionality of the system, not just one part of it. So at least, of course, a project starts from the inquiry stage, which means that you can also put in all your projects in here, and then you check the statuses of whether they're won or lost. And our system also allows you to even add cost estimations. So for example, for this project, you can see some of the basic information, and under here, there is also cost estimation, which is kind of also high level, but you can add it onto a system so you have more info to go by. And again, as we said, you need to trade less of these emails, and kind of every person who needs to know this, they can see this in the system very easily. So if you win a project, then you can easily add it to the project section with a simple click of a button. And then you can see it here in the project section. And then if you go further into a specific project, again, in a similar fashion, you see the basic information over here, which is like just the very high level things. You can also check the client if you have added information about them or are doing cooperation with them again. And basically all these other things that you might need to know about your project. And all these tabs that you can see on the left here, they offer this possibility to see all these specific things just for this project. There are also views where you can see it for example, the whole factory or a company, but this is just for this project. So you can also, for example, see the calendar, when should some deliveries be done, or there's not a lot, but there are some. And also some other things. You can use it as a document management system as well. So it allows you to add all the necessary documents that you might need to access for this project. In addition, it allows you to kind of make rights and hierarchy of these documents. So they don't just get added, they need to be accepted and, for example, signed or whatnot. But enough about the specifics about the project. Now, once you add elements to this, which of course come from Tekla, since that's the system, engineering system we use, and we use it to make building information models, then for the assembly plan, we don't do it manually just by dragging the element names into the plan. We actually do it with this interactive model, which means that you can, over here on the left, you can see the building information model, which is the IFC file, which came from, the elements came from Tekla. And you can plan assembly by very simply just clicking on the elements that you would like to see added. And then you click the plus sign and they immediately get added, for example, on this Saturday, the 22nd of May. And in this very simple way, the assembly managers can just plan when should the elements be assembled, so just so that they can complete the project deadlines and not go overboard with them. Now, moving away from assembly and rather to the elements themselves. So as you mentioned yourself, we do not only concrete in UPB, but the subsidiaries of UPB also produce steel elements and facades and other things. So there are also segments, for example, concrete and steel for this specific project. Then when going through concrete elements, you can see that all of them are color coded according to their status, which you can also see on the left here. So the purple ones, for example, are already installed or assembled. In other words, the light green ones have only been designed, and so on and so forth. You can very quickly get an idea of how far each element is along the process. In addition, when you click on the element, you can again see an even more direct view of just this one element. And again, you can see the basic information with also the drawing files added, so the DVG and the PDF. And what is another thing, since we use the LOD standard 400 of Tekla, then we also, when engineers do their job, they also add the details that need to go into this element, which means that here you can see that for this specific element, these details are needed. This kind of reinforcement should be used, and this kind of concrete should be used, which again helps our teams, the supply managers. It helps them a lot to just prepare everything so the element can actually be manufactured when it's supposed to be manufactured. And as mentioned by my colleague Kārlis, you can always see the most recent information. So if, as we know, in the construction process, a lot of the times, a lot of the things change. So for example, if an element design changes, then you can just add a new revision of the element, and then the previous one still gets stored, but the people who will be checking this element from now, they will mainly see the new revision, which means everyone gets the information which is up to date and the most recent one. A thing not mentioned by us, but that our system also does, is machine learning. So the more elements you have estimated, for example, the smarter it gets. So here you can see that for this specific element, you can do the estimation, and it actually suggests similar elements that have been produced in the past when using this system. And it suggests kind of what were the actual numbers for those elements. And then you don't have to have people just knowing everything. The system helps them understand what is the time that this element might take and what could be the cost associated with it. And then when elements are being produced, as we mentioned, the work is mainly done with scanners. That's why in the system, there's not really a place where you have this holistic view of the operations that are done while it's manufactured. So, for example, pouring the concrete in, or before that, cutting the rebars, bending them, setting up the reinforcement nets and everything. You do that with scanners, and the next step, which kind of happens with the computer for us, is the logistics part, where again, the planners who are planning logistics can use this feature to add all the necessary information for a specific delivery, and then it can go on further. So here again is this basic information, and sorry, let me go to the other shipments. And for example, I click on a specific delivery, and it shows me what elements should go on to this truck, how much it, for example, weighs, and what's the what are the sizes of the elements. And you can also do printouts, which you might need for these delivery drivers or whatever. There are pre-made printouts that you can print about these logistics. So, and basically after that, there are only two steps, which again are done with these scanners, which is unloading the elements off the truck and then assembling them on the site. And again, we update the statuses with just scanning these QR codes. Now, to kind of put this all together, as we said, that our system gives you the power to oversee all the things that are happening. And that is the kind of project management feature, which if we go back to the project start where we were, then there are kind of three main ways to see how a project is doing. There is this very high level view of the planned, designed, manufactured, delivered, and assembled statuses, and how many % have been done for concrete and for steel. The second one is just going to specific elements and seeing their statuses, which you can also, for example, filter by checking that you would like to see specific element types. Let's say that those are sandwich walls, and in addition, you want to see their, let's say, status. And so you can create manual filters, and you see, for example, you want already installed elements to see how many have been done. So then you filter them and you get all the sandwich walls that have already been installed. But perhaps the most visual way to see how good a project is doing is the visualization feature, which again works with this IFC file, which comes from Tekla structures. And over here, it will soon load. And you can see right now they are being shown by their element types. So all the types are in the same color, but we can easily switch this to element status. And then we can see that, for example, the pink ones have already been installed. The green ones are, as we can see here, for example, manufactured right now, and the white ones have been designed. And what it also allows us to do, for example, if we need to present to someone how the project has been doing, there is this timeline feature where I can drag and see how the project has developed from the very start of the project till the moment we're at right now. So this feature helps you very quickly understand what is the actual status of the project in a high-level sense. And lastly, I want to mention, not really show too much of the human resource management part of our system, which is basically that users in the system can request vacations, and then HR personnel can either allow them or not. And the more sophisticated feature is planning business trips for people. So for example, if it's assembly workers that you need to send to the project and send them back and have them, for example, a hotel to live. So if I just click on one of the business trips, you can see the information like where are they transferring, what kind of hotel they should be staying in, what car rental is happening, and kind of a very simple view of the main points of a business trip. So I think that's plenty, if enough for the first time, and having a very high-level intro into our system, and hopefully it cleared up some of the misunderstanding points.
Robert, if you allow, then I would ask some maybe demo questions. Is it okay?
Of course. Do you also want me to show you something in the system?
I think that would be maybe good.
Okay, let's hopefully do that. I will just share it again.
So you mentioned about the human resource planning, but the other side is also the material planning. How you do the material planning? How much concrete we have? Do we need some more concrete? Should we order some more concrete or rebars? How goes this part?
So that kind of goes with the thing that I mentioned about the details. So our system has kind of the information about what details should go into an element, what reinforcement should go into it, and what kind of concrete should go into it. And then all this information, the system helps to define this, like as the supply, for example, and then in the virtual warehouse, or like when you're planning the according elements for the specific day, you can actually see the supply that is kind of needed, and then in advance you can order if you don't have the necessary supplies, or if you do have them, you also see that. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if I can easily find it immediately.
So basically, there is some database that is tracking how much, for example, concrete do we have right now, then how much we have planned, and then it suggests also that, okay, we have only this amount concrete and we have planned that soon we need this amount, so order this kind of concrete grade more.
Yeah, and also not only concrete, but for example, all these tiny details that should go into an element, because concrete you could kind of just order in bulk, for example, and just use it slowly. But there are some of these details that are, for example, used only for 5 elements, and then you won't really need them for like a year. And our system also helps you manage these supplies, so you understand how many you need, and you don't end up spending or I guess losing money when you shouldn't be. Unfortunately, I can't find it in the demo system. There might just not be such a feature, because I think it should be somewhere here, but can't find it immediately.
No problem, it's somewhere there. The next question, or what you demoed, was how you are planning the assembling. There was like this IFC model, and then you selected the IFC elements and then assigned their date when they should be assigned. And it was really nice to see which element has been assigned already date when they should be assembled. But how you do the planning of transportation? You showed the truck, but is the dividing also using this 3D visualization to dividing the trucks and then seeing what truck when is full? How goes this one?
So this planning of shipments does not happen with this visual kind of feature, but there is a specific thing called the delivery planner, which if you saw that I navigated through the elements and deliveries, and when you click on this delivery planner, it's in a bit different manner, but kind of the most important thing is when you're planning assembly to see this kind of visual model, because it's a bit difficult if you just have a list to see, for example, if this 406 element or 408 element should be the first one, but in the visual model you kind of see which one is maybe on the next floor or whatever. But when you have done these assembly dates, then you kind of don't need the model anymore, because these assembly dates kind of already tell you the timestamps of when should the specific element be arriving on site and everything. So then you can use this delivery planner, which again allows you to just click on elements. For example, here you can see that it also divides them into assembly teams. And you can just click on, I don't know, like 3 elements and add them to just a new delivery. And when you're trying to approve it, it will also ask you some kind of very simple things. And afterwards, after you have done this kind of lump sum of elements that you will be including in this delivery, you can go to the shipments section and add more information. So like this delivery on what kind of truck it should go, like who should be the driver, what should be the dates of loading onto the truck, and all other things. And that's kind of how the planning of shipments happens, not with the visual file, but it's also not as needed as, for example, for assembly.
Yeah, makes totally sense. I think you're right. If we have planned the installation, we have planned the delivery, then the next planning I would like to see is the warehouse planning, because once the element is ready, then probably you will plan the warehouses. I have seen in precast factories are really huge, and I think it would be good to plan where they should be, how it goes.
So actually, before that, maybe I can also show you the kind of planning of the actual manufacturing, because I don't think I showed it yet.
That was my next question.
Okay, then maybe I will do this question and then go to the manufacturing planning. So I just need to find this feature. And yeah, so in this very simple way, it's kind of not color coded or in any way, but this is so when you're, for example, putting the element after the concrete has cured and the element is basically done, you add it to your warehouse, and it is also important where you put it. For example, if you will plan a delivery with other elements, it would be nice that they would be together. But perhaps the most important thing is actually when you need to retrieve it from the warehouse, knowing where it is. So for this, we have this specific kind of site of elements where you can see that the placement in warehouse and location for delivery, for example, which are just defined for our own factories. Each of these is kind of a small section of the warehouse, and then the workers can easily spot where a certain element is located. Or when they are kind of putting these elements down, they can again go to this view, search for the according elements, or like where the other elements that should go in a shipment are, and then put this one next to those, and this way organize the elements also a bit more nicely in the warehouse.
And these are the actual places or the planned places where the planner thinks that, okay, you guys should put these elements to section L4, but when the guys are going there, then I don't know what happens. They see that it's full or something and they put the section L5, then these are the places that actually the element has been stored, right?
Yeah, and so these are the places where it actually has been stored, and this is actually such a situation is where these scanners come into play again, because you don't have to go into the system and do some tough manual work, but you just take the scanner out, you scan the element and just change, for example, the placement where it is located, and thus everyone has the up-to-date information about it. And I guess then without your question, since it was going to be your next one, I can just go onto the, yeah, I will just show the kind of manufacturing plan. So we actually have multiple ones. Some are a bit more basic, some are not as, but I would like to show you specifically the prefab manufacturing plan, which we have, which is for production tables. Since a large share of the elements produced in our company's concrete factories are actually sandwich walls or just solid walls, or some other elements that are manufactured on production tables, then this has been a feature which has helped us a lot. So what is different from this to some other feature where you would just check the manufacturing? So you can actually add elements specifically on tables. So if I just took an element, I can drag it, for example, in this day, and it creates a new palette. And it didn't. No, it did work. The internet is just a bit slow. And then you can see how the element already fits, for example, on the production table. And our system actually helps to optimize this placement of elements on these tables. So if I would take another element, try to add it to the same table, then we again click on this and you see it in red because the system says that we can't put these two large elements on the same table. So this also works kind of as a quality control, I guess, for the planners. So the system helps them understand if the planned amounts of elements are actually possible on the specific tables. And another great feature from this view is that once the day starts, for example, you know the elements that should be manufactured on that day. So the production manager can just go in the system, click on one button and get all the drawings for all the elements that should be produced in that day. So unfortunately, I have to reshare the screen for you to see the file that I just got, but that's no problem. So here you can see it just generated a document for me where you can see all the elements that I had just planned for this specific day. And then you can just distribute these to the workers and the productive day can start and they can start working. So that's kind of the simple view of the manufacturing planning.
Yeah, really cool. Every worker knows at the beginning of the day what are the elements we are going to produce, get the drawings or the information out, what elements go to what pallet, and everything has been planned, so there is no oversight, so it should work. No bad surprises. Good surprises we all like, but bad surprises nobody likes.
Yeah, precisely. And you also even see like the suggested placement of elements, so you don't even have to wrap your head around that. You can just see, okay, the system said we can put them like this, and then you can just put them like that.
You mentioned several times about machine learning and suggestions. There was about when you were doing estimation and this palette organizing or planning. What else, or how this machine learning works behind the scenes? So what it does in Alto ERP?
So yeah, long story short, for example, when you want to estimate how much one element takes to produce or how much it costs to produce, the system, you do it in a system manually once, and there are certain parameters which define, for example, a 3-layer wall. It's a thickness, it's type of rebar, dimensions, and so on and so forth. So the system itself kind of senses that the wall you just did is kind of similar to the wall just coming up. And in construction, it's sometimes it's not about, the difference is not in 5 cents, it's maybe more of euros or minutes or hours. So say, maybe we could apply the same logic to this one, just multiply it by a bit larger concrete amount. And that's part of the factor. Some of the ideas we have had in our minds we haven't yet implemented is about that, for example, there could be a scanner in the future at the ceiling in the production facility that would kind of project an augmented reality picture on the, for example, on the production table, just for example, projecting the Tekla model of the rebar, and then the guys would just put it there. We have faced a lot of difficulties with the dust and then the quality of the air because of the production of just getting the beams out. But we're also thinking about such creative matters of just how we could take it maybe one step further. As you know, Tekla and Trimble are having great solutions where you basically go to an empty work site and you just look in a screen and you see your future home as it is sitting in those perfect coordinates. So maybe at some point in time, we might have the same for the precast production, that you basically see how it should look like and you just bring the components and put them on top of the virtual image.
That sounds really cool. To put these two together, one thing is to see the on the drawings, another thing is to see in 3D in front of you, and I think the big value comes here also for the checking part. If some third party comes and wants to see or check what has been done, then comparing with the drawings, not so easy. But when you can see the 3D model, I have seen some videos in social media already how they are doing rebars on the outside, like on the construction site, and it looks really cool, and that helps a lot.
True.
So at first, when you are doing this planning, then first times you put manually the numbers, and later on it suggests, and you can overwrite these suggestions or modify them if you see.
The system is kind of a helper, but the human is still the boss. So the system might suggest, it might notify you, but in the end, the power resides with the actual human, and they can overpower the system. So at least that's good that the machine cannot rise against you.
Yeah, like Terminator. I have said quite similar thing using Tekla when doing that. Let the system do the automatically drawings, and then leave the last obligation and also the possibility for human to check it over, do the modifications. Let human says the last word before going out. This system looks really cool and good and really helpful. What can you say about the implementation? How long it takes, or how much the company should change about their workflow? Or how is with the implementation to one company?
So I would probably address the question from the perspective of how long it actually takes versus how much it should take in theory. Because in theory, you like with many other tasks, you would probably spend less time doing it, but then you have several meetings or you work in different sprints, and it just takes 2 weeks, although you might have worked just 2 days. So I would say probably once we shake the hands and say, okay, let's do it, we would probably have several sessions which might be spread out over 2 weeks or 3 weeks, where we basically discuss how do you do things in your currently, what would you like to change, and how it fits our system, the current setup. And we basically come back, have a think about it a week or two, sort of trying to put the picture what is currently in the factory and how it fits in the system and what they should be changed. We go back, we talk again, and then we fully align on an implementation plan. Maybe 2 more weeks to set up all the technical details, and then probably spread out some scattered trainings over a 2-week period for the key users, and then just a bit of holding hands for the next month or so to kind of answer their queries and questions. So I'd say the total time invested is not that much, but realistically that it involves meeting and talking with people and coming back and thinking things over. I would say 2 months really is the minimum just to get it up and running, and then actually for the people to get it as a daily habit is a bit longer. It's like, I think they say in the books there's 21 or 14 days that you need to do something every day to become a habit and then stop thinking about it. So I think everybody that says that you can use a system as a habit in less than 20 days or so is just pure marketing, I would say, or a very convenient and user-friendly system. So yeah.
Yes. So yeah, this is something that I have seen also, that at first it can be like different humps and bumps, but the companies who are actually taking the effort and putting a little bit more effort with Tekla also at first, and they are going this first period through, then in the end they are very thankful for. I'm calling this giving a birth pain. Once you survive it, then it goes much better and easier. Okay, we have seen this really really advanced ERP system. What would you say what are the biggest wins or gains regarding the profitable? What makes it profitable? Or what are the biggest gains of using this kind of advanced or really good ERP systems, of building them?
So of course, like in the end, it boils down to it just becomes more profitable. You save less money or just make more. But if we go a bit more into why it happens, so it arises from multiple fields. So one is definitely also the, as I said, the claims that you can make and, for example, report these issues. Because one, it also raises the accountability of people, which means they are a bit more careful about what they're doing, because the system can kind of catch them in what they have done, because it has all the information about which person has done what. And also, like, it just helps solve the issues faster. For example, if there's a defective element, you don't need to send emails to multiple people and then just go back and forth, but you use this feature where you immediately put this department, and then you can just see, like, kind of divide this responsibility and everything. In addition, of course, these optimized plannings, they again help you to minimize the issues that are happening. And in addition, it helps you to better utilize your workforce and your workforce's time, which again means that for you can do it in a smaller time. So the other time is when these workers can do something else, and again give you more profit in the end, or at least more revenue. And kind of from all the features that have been implemented into our system, it under those have been a problem that we have felt in our factory. So kind of it all adds up together, but and in the end it ends up just saving you money and becoming more profitable. But it's not like one specific thing that does all the benefit. It's kind of everything, as said before, everything coming together and making this one unitized system, which helps you kind of go through the whole process and make it as efficient and optimized as possible.
Yeah, very, very good. So, as I see, it's about good planning, have this everything together well planned, and every part of this plan should have to know. Again, these three things, very important. What need to do, who needs to do, and when needs to do. So, and then following the plan. And this plan is done in an optimized way. So, really good. Can you tell me a little bit what are your future plans with the Alto ERP?
Yeah, sure. I think we're continuing to integrate with Tekla, and just to keep the link alive, because that's probably one of the almost the golden standard working with precast, and at least in the Northern Europe and Europe, that's what we see. We keep that alive. I think we look towards a way to simplify the implementation, to not play in the market where we have those bulky ERP systems and it just takes forever. You get consultants flying here and there and charging you money just for making meetings. So to give it more like off the shelf, of course you need some handholding, like with Tekla or with AutoCAD. You can't just start using it straight away. It's just a bit too complex for self-learning. But apart from that, yeah, so it's simplification, keeping the Tekla alive, and then looking for more features, maybe even more sophisticated automatic planning, which can take into account items like parameters like the color of concrete, the various sizes, thicknesses, and all that, because there's very many balls to juggle when you do the correct manufacturing plan. It's not always the deadline. It might be the reusability of the molds, although you might actually say, okay, let's produce all the items which have the same shape this week, although they are needed like 2 months ahead, and storing them in warehouse is cheaper than actually producing a new mold each week to manufacture 2 items per week. So there's a lot of things to consider, but all in all, we're just listening to UPB and seeing what kind of feedback the users give, and we try to kind of keep it alive along the way.
Karlis, yeah, already mentioned about this virtual reality or augmented reality. Guys, what are your thoughts more? Where BIM or this BIM thing go in the future? I don't know, in 5-10 years. What are your thoughts?
Wow, that's a tough one. I think you're the best. You're the best BIM expert in Estonia, so you know better. But my humble opinion is that I think that the amount of early, so we have those early adopters, like you and others, just working with Tekla, it's all great, and having different kinds of systems in place, sharing the models, walking around with augmented reality, Google's goggles, not sure how glasses, let's call it them that way, and all that. But I would probably say there's still a fraction of the market doing that. So probably in terms of BIM for construction, I would say that probably more and more companies would sort of adapt or actually start using things that early adopters do. For example, having Tekla working with an IFC format, having a 3D model. It's for some it seems like we did it 5 years ago, but for some it's still the future. So yeah, my prediction probably would be that the BIM becomes more of a standard rather than exception for some of the very innovative companies. And then regards of what's in for BIM, I have no clue. I'll leave it to you. I think it's augmented reality, probably all kind of synchronizing and probably software talking with each other. So having this universal file formats. You design something in Tekla, you do quantity takeoff in another software which is suitable. You feed the data back into some kind of tendering software. It gives you the price. You send it to the client, he objects or whatever, and it synchronizes all together. You don't have these different data sets and models.
I think. Oh, sorry, I thought you were finished.
Yeah, I'm done now.
Okay, I just wanted to kind of add onto it because I agree, and I think it also this thing that you mentioned that might happen. It arises from the fact that you only know how good it can be, like as good as you have it. So you don't know how good it could be. So these companies that are using these BIM models, I think they know that it's a lot better. But the ones who have not tried this just I mean, they've been doing business maybe for 10, 20, 30 years already without these BIM models. So their thinking is just, why would I need it if I'm doing fine without it? But I think it kind of requires more people to have more people talking about this. So I think it will kind of ramp up exponentially, maybe because at start it's quite slow, this implementation of BIM and everything. But as more companies find out like how actually efficient it can be and how much it can give you, then I feel like it could raise exponentially because everyone talks with everyone, and the more people there are to talk about it, the more people find out about it and start using it potentially. So that's kind of my addition to Carl's point.
Very good. Yes, I agree with you both, and I can say that in several countries it's already on governmental requirements done, this BIM standards. Okay, here and there is a little bit unclear and need to clarify what is this BIM and what they exactly mean. But if governmental level, there are different countries already pushing in that way, then the engineers and have to go with this way also sooner or later. And I have seen more and more on construction site also. My own heart was bleeding when I was doing engineering work and seeing how we have this nice BIM 3D Tekla model, all this information inside, and then on the construction site it was only used simple these 2D drawings. Then I was a little bit sad, but more and more my colleagues or my friends are asking from construction site also, okay, show me what can I do with this. I got this IFC model. What can I do with this model? What are the possibilities? And that makes me happy also. So guys, do you have any last words, recommendations or wishes?
No, I think it's from my side, I would say thank you for inviting us and for the companies willing to adopt any kind of BIM related software. I think it's just that I would probably be bold to say it's an inevitable journey you will have to take at some point or sooner or later. And probably the indication from my side would be when you're starting to struggle, when you start to feel the pressure that maybe the way you have done things before is just taking too much effort, just ask around. There are guys like Sten, there are local distributors, resellers. Ask them what they have in stock. You have a tendering problem, you have a precast management problem. There usually is a software out there that can solve it. And you can start by just having the first simple steps. It's like if the baby doesn't walk in the first 6 months, you don't just throw him out the window. You just still have the hope that it can work out. So I think you just have to adopt the same mindset. It will work out. That's how we're built.
Yeah, for me also, I wanted to thank you for the possibility to talk with you, and also the people watching this, and kind of I guess also hope that more people start considering both, for example, our system, but especially Tekla, because I feel that our system people are at least somewhat considering, or systems like ours. But as you mentioned, since we are on this analogies with babies, then as you mentioned, this giving birth, that at first it's super difficult and tough, and it hurts to implement, for example, or start using Tekla if you've done something that is a lot simpler than that. But if you actually hold through, like get through the pain and actually carry it on, then you can afterwards see the reward and this satisfaction you can actually get from the baby that has now been born, and gives you all the joy in the world, because you can manage your projects and your building information model is a lot better.
Very good. I would say from my part also that definitely if you're looking different solutions, then the cheapest one is not the best one. I just recently bought a cooking pan. I thought like, okay, it's just a cooking pan and let's go with the cheapest. But in the end, it ends like always that you throw this cheapest one away and you have to go the real one anyway. So if do it, then do it correctly. You should check out their webpage if you're interested, altoerp.com. Also, I recommend to follow them in YouTube or go to the YouTube, search in YouTube Alto 4.0 and look especially the videos that has in name Alto ERP videos. And in LinkedIn, find Alto 4.0. But anyways, if you see that Kārlis said, if you're feeling already that these systems and things are going already overcomplicated and then maybe you should check out, contact with them, get some, definitely you have more questions, ask a demo and like asking don't cost nothing, and to see if this is a solution for your company. But even if you are not going for this solution and you have more simple, let's say, systems going around, then I'm sure that you found or look again this episode if you didn't found yet, to get some tips and tricks, what you can take, some tools, some implementation. Oh, maybe we should start tracking the status, how to put the dates. Tekla tool is really awesome also you can add different kind of UDAs, and how you solve this with different databases, how you do the tracking information. Find what is, like I always say to Tekla users, look what's taking the most time in your company and where comes the biggest mistakes, or where do you lose time and money. So find these places and start fixing. If you like this episode and you would like to get more this kind of information and all kind of good stuff about Tekla from us, then follow us in YouTube, Facebook. You have to find or look for a TS Guide, and in LinkedIn follow my personal account to get put subscribe, follow to get more information. Our webpage is tsguide.eu. I thank you very much, guys, for coming.
Thanks.
And see you next time.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Of course. Bye bye. Have a nice one.